Alex Phillips, mate. Good morning. How are you?
Good, Ivan. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
You probably would have liked to do this conversation at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it's a bit late, mate. It took us, what, half an hour to log on.
True, wasn't it? True,
You're good
wasn't
at
it?
IT.
Hey, mate, great to see you. Before we get started, how would you describe our relationship?
We're good long-term friends. You're a mentor of mine. You and I think you started about 2 years before me at McGrath, you and Shannon, but when you were Shannon's assistant. I still remember that three series with the IB 2010 number plates, wasn't it? Am I right?
Yeah,
2010?
yeah.
I always used to look up to that. That's the sort of number plate I wanted. I remember those days at McGrath. That was the best of the best. I was speaking about it with someone else last night about it. That actually, Elliot Platt's just saying we're so lucky that we started at probably the best cultural environment you could have. Like that's as good as you could get with like probably 10 of the best agents ever in Australia that were there. That allowed us to get to, I believe that, me sitting behind Adrian Bowe, listening to him punch out 500 calls a day is
Mm.
probably what's, embedded in my, brain early on. So I had really good early upbringings of real estate, getting the right ethics and the right, right day-to-day actions, which I still do today that I did 22 years ago. And, I think we're blessed to have that opportunity to get that foundation. And if you look at all those guys, everyone's gone on to different journeys of their lives, but they're all very successful. And, put that down to John and what he did for us. I was very lucky, I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't start there. So it was a good, and that's where we kickstart our relationship. And, obviously then you went on to Brezzy Whitney. My brother went and joined you, and now he's obviously up at Byron Bay, loving what he does. But everyone's done different things, but all kept in touch, and we all still learn off each other.
Yeah, mate, I appreciate our friendship because we did start a long time together. We're relatively the same age. I always felt I had you in the early days,
You did.
mate, you just took off, which a lot of people don't. I mean, everyone knows you. You don't need an introduction. You're the Mr. Real Estate guy of Australia. Um, I'm curious. Back then, when we were 20 something, who did you mentioned Adrian Bowe? Because yeah, I remember he was a really good prospector, phone prospector. Who did you look up to when you were 20, 25?
It's definitely you in a big way. I looked at
We were, we were
Shannon.
we were at the same kind of level. We were at
Oh,
that.
you're always ahead. I think Adrian Bowe. It was just more the guys within the office.
Mm,
James Dack, but he was hard to get along with.
mm,
There was John McGrath was a big. He was a Mr. Real Estate back then, wasn't he? Like the best. The auctions he used to do were the best auctions I've ever seen. The training sessions on a Monday morning, like everyone was just so engaged. Like they like the stuff that he innovated in real estate, like the McGrath page in the Sydney Morning Herald. Like I remember I used to get up every Saturday morning at like 5 o'clock to go get the private ads and circle them and go door knock them. Like stuff like that really created a really good foundation. But I think I used to drive around my car listening to Lee Woodward C to CDs.
yeah.
And now it's podcasts, but everywhere I drove, because I used to drop off the space magazines on a Friday to all the offices for McGrath. That I think I was a very good listener,
Mm,
um,
mm,
and took in a lot of what other people did. But then you take bits and pieces from everyone else, and you make it your own. That's where I think a lot of agents, and I'm lucky I've probably got a good personality and engaging and energetic. And I think then you make it, you take a bit from everyone, then you sort of blend it together and you bring it into you. And as long as you come across authentic, passionate, and real, like I think if you look at all the top performers, they've got really high energy levels and engaging, and like they sort of the room, gets attracted to them. And we're lucky that we still have that after 23 years, but that's because I love what I do. I think a lot of agents probably get burnt out because they don't really like it. They're doing it to try and become the best agent or beat us, and they just can't because the mental headspace isn't there.
yeah. Yeah, it was. I mean, going back to that, they're great points. We did have it was like the All Stars back then, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So we were exposed to that at 20 years old, 19 years old, 18. So for us, the bar was always set very high.
Mm.
Um, you were very loyal to Pauline back then, I remember.
Yeah.
You then go off a year after Bresic Whitney and you followed Pauline with, I think it was Goodyear Donnelly. And I remember like you were there and you definitely had talent and and effort and the right attitude. But there was a period there, mate, that a lot of people don't know, by the way. A lot of people are listening to this, but a lot of people know who you are. They know what you do now. I'm not really interested in talking about what you do now, because what you do now, I don't think there's anyone in the country that does what you do. There is no one in the country that does what you do now. So talking about what you do now is largely irrelevant. They're not at your level.
Mm.
But I'm really curious about, go back. And by the way, when Alex just mentioned everybody about that he used to circle private ads in the paper, that was pre-internet. So that was in the late 90s. That was before the internet. That's why he's saying we use the Sydney Morning Herald. But
Still do the same thing now.
yeah, we do with
So,
private ads.
and what we did, see, the difference is with us is, and I think why we've stayed so consistent is what I did 20 years ago, we still do now. We do better and we get better and we keep compounding it. We don't have enough hours in the day to do what I did then, which was build and nurture a database, but I still do that day in, day out. Like, we sold a house yesterday in Coogee for just under 7 million. The minute it sells, with we're phoning people that we know came through the open house, houses either side, relevant properties that we might be targeting. So like we're still very much on the ball. But what I did back then and I still do now is most of the, like, we get so many listings where agents go, I've got a buyer for your house, and they're thinking about selling it. We don't even know these vendors. They're not on our database. They're going in saying all this shit about, I've got a buyer, they're going to pay this, that. They get a buyer in, that vendor then calls us saying, we're always thinking about giving you a call. This is what's happened to us. Then we go in and list it. All right. Because I actually haven't probably built the right relationship. My approach has always been very different, where we give someone in our database relevant information that they can relate to, that it's like we're giving them a piece of news that gives them confidence around their values, or you might be able to progress them a little bit more. It would be a market forecast, a just sold, a just listed, but we're not actually asking for their business. Probably that's one thing I'm not that great at, is asking like, oh, can I come in and have a look at your house? But I've always known that if I call these guys 10 times a year or leave 10 messages, I know they're going to call me.
Yeah.
And I think they like that approach.
But we are skipping ahead, because if we go back, when you were the understudy to Pauline, a lot of people don't know that, but you worked under a lady called Pauline Goodyear who had strong profile at the time. What was the change back then in the early 2000s where I saw you as her understudy, and mate, and we just started Bresic Winnie for a year or two, but then mate, you just exploded, and mate, I just started seeing your name everywhere. So is that because it was that you had a database? Did you just think that you were better than everybody else? Did you just outwork everybody? Go back to the early 2000s, not the sale.
Yeah, I think it was the clock. I look at Pauline as an agent. Like, she started the beachside suburbs for McGrath.
Yeah.
We were very lucky. It wasn't a very saturated market. McGrath were new, they were fresh. There's lots of dinosaurs there. She was like elegant lady, good operator, knows how to close deals. Then I come in below her. My role was an admin and sales agent. So I'd go, I want to get my admin out as quickly as possible, get in there early, get that done. Then I'd start doing, I'd get call lists and start doing buyer calls for the properties we had. I started doing expired listing calls, letterbox drops, cold calling Bronte and Tamarama, building a database. That's really where I built my database, was cold calling those suburbs like 10 times. But I think, we were lucky then. There wasn't like, like if I look at now where I compete, there's 10 agents we compete against. So this is, it's changed. So what back then, and also probably her mentorship, which is how I like to do my team, was she actually let me go out and like do listings. And I remember you guys, like Will always used to say, like, if you've got people that, like my team who work with me, like they go out and do listings on their own and they miss them. Like I don't, obviously we get disappointed, we learn from it, move on, but she probably allowed me to grow a lot more than what other agents would. Like a lot of agents are very like they do everything and they get worried about that person doing an open. I was very, I think she knew that I had it in me, so she probably allowed me to do a lot more. And then I'd read that, you lose listings, buyers would, have a go at me, vendors were disappointed. So I learned very early on the knockbacks, but also the rejections and not getting emotional about it. I think a lot of agents get too emotional. We've sold properties for $1 million less than what we've told vendors. You can't sort of get caught up in that and go, oh, fuck, it's our fault or whatever. It's just you've done everything. As long as you've done everything possible, it doesn't matter. But yeah, winding it back off, and I think I was very lucky. I had someone that gave me, a free rein with some, pullback and some guidance and some mentorship, so I could then do my own thing and build on my own database.
Mate, I'm
Yeah,
so
because I don't know. How do you see? Even like, I'm sure there's guys that that you're teaching that probably don't give their team members enough. Like, like they're not going to learn. They're not going to become their own agents. They're probably going to burn out. They're probably going to end up, becoming a buyer's agent.
Yeah, I think it's a hard one. When you've had it, like you had it from Pauline, so you'll naturally, give out some, you'll let go of more rope to your team to try different things. So if you've had it before, then you're probably better at it. If you haven't, if it depends where people have come up from and who mentored them.
Hmm.
What happened with one thing I was always curious, mate, is you were the only person I know who could successfully sell across bloody 20 suburbs, right?
Yes.
And you did, and that's not recent. That's not the last 5 years, mate. You
No,
were
we've
doing
actually.
that because I left 5 years ago. You were doing that 15, 12, 10 years ago. So, like, how did you go from, because I remember, if I remember correctly, your first main suburbs was around Bronte and a bit of Queens Park from what
Hmm.
I remember,
Yeah, that's fine.
and
Yeah.
a bit of Wallara because Pauline lived in Wallara. So you had a bit of Wallara, a bit of Queens Park and Bronte. Mate, 10 years ago, you had stuff at Maroubra. I was competing, you were beating me in listings in Surrey Hills, which was really
Hmm.
frustrating, which was my backyard. You would beat me in the Horizon. You would pick up an apartment in Potts Point. Then I'd see you with something in Vaucluse. So, like, how did that how did that work out? Do you remember? Or did you just
Yeah. Like, if I look at our run sheet for this weekend, we've got like 26 opens, and I reckon we're probably in 12 suburbs. But
but,
yes, you're
but
right.
that was 10 years ago.
I know, but I'll tell you why it happened that way, and I believe that, and why we consistently still do it. Obviously, we got a really good following, and like everyone knew that we're good, a great agent in those core suburbs
But did they know that
back
10 years
then,
ago?
10 years ago. And what started to happen is we started to get calls going, oh, this guy's, what's he doing here? Can you come look at my house in Wallara, Queen's Park, Paddington?
Hmm.
And what I think where the difference is with me is like, I go, fuck, I look at it, I go, okay, that house in Paddington's 2 million, it's 40 grand. So I go, okay, there's 40 grand comp.
Yeah.
So I would always go into every listing so well prepared with case studies currently on the market with us, other agents, what's on the market, what's sold. I researched the streets. So I went into a listing, even if I didn't know the area, like I was like fucking fully across it. A top buy list, a really good case study, cross selling, all that. So mentally, I think what most agents do is they get shy or they lose confidence. They go, I don't know that area. They come in like a bit wishy-washy. We're going in like it's a full-on listing presentation, even if we've never sold in that suburb or that street. And the dedication and the effort that we took before we got into that meeting with the listing core and the actual presentation of it, it looked like we were the market leaders.
Right.
So it allowed us to then keep building and building, and that's how we do 200 to 250 sales a year. That's why it's very hard for anyone else to do that, that
But
competes
yeah,
against
you
us.
do you've done that now and you've done it consistently for the last several years. But mate, when for people who haven't been doing this, you were doing that 10 and 12 years ago. That's
Yeah,
right.
so we would do 20 to 50 sales, and we were still in 10 suburbs.
Yeah.
So it'd be, but
So
I
does
think
that
also,
mean, but did you prospect Darlinghurst? Did you prospect Redfern? Did you prospect Paddington?
No, we would. What would happen is once we've listed and sold something, then we would prospect it, build a database, then and then keep nurturing that database. So then it allowed us to, when you're doing like say 20 to 50 sales a year, like say most agents, you've got the time to nurture multiple core suburbs because you've got the time to make call. Now, I can't do that now. Like I wish I could because I don't have the time so when I remember building my database, when you remind me of that, I'd call all the Paddington, all of Wallara, I'd call Bronte, Waverley, and I'd call these guys like 4 or 5 times a year, so they felt obligated to use me
Mm.
because we were always a front of mind. So once we had a little bit of a market share in each, it slowly built up, and it just continued that way. Sometimes this year we've sold like 8 houses in Queens Park. We've got the largest market share there at the moment, by about 10%.
Yeah.
But that's because I don't know, we just continually prospect off the back of it. But I think it's the building of that database early on, which is where probably I think most agents, when they build a database, are looking for the listing today. I always had the mentality it's going to be 5 years down the track.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think this is a differential. It's the long game. It's the mentality. I remember you always saying, "Oh, you got to have 20 balls up in the air, 10 drop, 10 don't." Great, and you just keep going that way. But you can't come across like you need that listing today because that vendor's not going to be ready.
With the listing, like if I think about the best agents of all time, right? Like um, I remember like Bart Doff being number one. I remember then James Stack being the Alex Phillips for about 10 years. I think there was a period there where Bill Maloof was, and then you've held that throne for the last decade or longer. Um, when you were going to listings, you were the first to go pretty aggressive at potential sellers, I found, right? Like some of the things that you were saying was very, aggressive, but it worked. Like and to give an example, and correct me if I'm wrong, you would say to potential sellers, like, who are you speaking to them? They're not experienced, or they haven't sold in this suburb, or I've sold more houses than them. And you were saying that 10 years ago, your predecessors would have never approached things like it clearly worked for you. So
Mm.
it worked for you because it got you to where it got you, right? But where did that come from? Because that listing approach was, mate, no one had it. No one had done. And when you started doing it, everyone then started doing
Yeah, and now we don't do it anymore.
it.
We don't because we
What do you mean? What do you mean? Because you don't need to
because
anymore.
what we've worked out is like demographics and people change over the years. That like nowadays, for most of the clientele, they know what you're doing. Back 10, 15 years ago, they didn't. And a lot of people don't like it. Some people do, so you got to pick the person you're dealing with. But you know what the perception of what a good agent is to the client actually isn't what it is. Because so that they make these, I always find the consumer makes really weird decisions. They don't actually know the lay of the land. So there's so many, say we're in Bronte and we're up against an agent and some of them are your people that you coach. We'll go, this is our market share. He sold five. So at the moment we're at 278 million in Bronte, where we come up against someone else that sold 20 mil. They don't know that, but you've got to tell them about it. So you've got to show it to them. Say, what does that mean? Is we've met 500 buyers, they've met 20. So it's actually the educational piece more to that vendor that doesn't know. So you've got to be very careful on how you do it. You're not like having a backstab of that agent saying they're shit and they're semi-retired and they don't really do much. And it's more going, guys, this is what it means to you by us with our market share versus them. Are you aware of that? Why don't you go onto realestate.com and look at their profile? It'll tell you everything about them. So it's probably
Well, you're
more.
saying it's an angle that you take. It needs to be polished. You can't throw it down someone's throat. You won't do it all the time, but in certain spots, if you feel that you clearly have an edge, which you do in most
Yeah.
spots, and they need to know, then you'll remind them of that. That's what you're saying.
But look, we got a listing the other day over Ben Collier in Wallara and Edward Street, and he flipped his lid after we we listed it, and like he started like just saying, Alex this, that, he doesn't give a shit, he's fucking whatever. Like we're struggling with that listing at the moment, but they're never going to go back to him either. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? But then he also said, oh, Alex doesn't sell in Wallara. And I said, oh, do you have any? So when I went into the listing appointment, I said, do you have any concerns? He goes, yes, I do. I said, you selling Bronte and Waverley. And I said, who else are you speaking to? He said, Ben Collier. I said, I'll just show you something. He said, I've sold more houses in Wallara this year than Ben Collier, and actually got up both our stats. He goes, okay, that's good to know. Then that fear went away. So we actually sort of overcome those objections by asking the right questions, saying, guys, Ben's a great agent. He sold 7 houses, we've sold 10. So but they were pushed in another direction because of what he told them about us, and it wasn't correct.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, understand. Well done. Your work hours and your work rate's pretty legendary. Early starts and generally late finishes. I've heard you put.
Not too. Yeah, I'm lucky. I'm at home by 5:30.
Now, but that's different because Alex Phillips has now got a team of
6.
You've been number one agent for how long?
9 years.
Yeah, so that's very different. But if we go back, your work rate, because I was a hard worker, as you know, we used to start early and finish late. But that when you're following up potential sellers or calling vendors, you never found, because I used to see and hear that you were ringing them at 6:37, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. Like, what was there no boundaries there, or you asked them if you could do that? Like, I never got like.
I think it just became no boundaries because again, the demographic of people in Sydney, they're up early, they've got kids, they're morning people. Like I texted clients this morning at 10 to 5 before I started training on some like conversations with buyers I've had overnight on our WhatsApp groups, and I confirmed all my appointments this morning at 6 o'clock and had a coffee at Larderia. So like coming to see you this morning, I'm already fully prepared. So it's more what it does. It creates. So I look at my calendar and I've got this clear view of the whole day in front of me because before I've got into the office, I've confirmed everything. I've gone, okay, this is our property we're selling today. Like those morning hours, like I start, I'm up at 4:15 every morning. I've cleared my head. I've had 2 hours when no one's been able to distract me. Then it just helps the whole day. And so I reckon the sales that we do versus say our closest competitors is probably they could be better agents than us, but we're working 25% more than them in a day.
Yeah.
But I don't I start making phone calls before I was on the phone to a client in New York before you called because I knew obviously different time zones, but I start phone calls from 20 past 7 to 7:30 every morning.
How old are you now, Al?
44.
And you're still at the top of the game. And do you see you love it? We know how much you love it. Do you see yourself doing this for another 20 years?
Probably 10 at this pace. But I think once I have kids and that, which will be soon, like that'll slow up, and I can afford to do that. Do you know what I mean? Like things will.
You could afford to do it 10 years ago, but anyway.
Yeah, but I've made this choice where I am, and I'm happy with my choices. But I think, the things will. You're going to slow down eventually, but I've got a lot of drive in me to keep doing and do I do it for the money? No, I do it for many different things. But
what are other reasons? Like why are you so on it and so relent? You're a freak of nature. And I've always said that. And I don't think anyone could ever question your success because you've outworked and your commitment is just, you're the Djokovic, you're the Kobe Bryant or the Jordan of the game. That's how I see it.
Yeah, thanks.
So my question to you is, what are those reasons that keep you so driven? Is it that, because I know you like buying nice things, I know you like nice holidays. Is it the number one title? Do you just love competing and winning listings? Is it a bit of everything?
It's everything you've said, but I think I know the more that as older I've got, I know that what I'm doing now, like I could retire right now. I'm fucking done. Do you know what I mean? I've got enough real estate. Luckily I have invested my money over the years too. Like I own like some great houses, and like they've doubled in value, and like I haven't, I've earned a lot of money. I spend a lot of money, but I invest a lot of money, but I also don't. I do it so I can do 10 weeks holiday a year. You got to remember as well. Like some of these guys that are good agents, man. They have never been on a fucking holiday. I don't know how they do it. Like I still do 10 to 12 weeks every year of holiday, so I can work. 6 days a week from 6 till 5. Because I know I've got these blocks of holidays in front of me, so I don't get burnt out. And I might list 10 listings, but I don't give a shit because I've fucking worked hard enough to get to that point. And I do the best, absolute best holidays. I believe that I'm fully relaxed. I don't have my phone. My team looks after it, and then you recharge. So
What's the hardest thing about being Alex Phillips?
the hardest, it's probably my internal drive that I always, if I'm dropping off, I go, fuck, what I need to do to reset. And that happens all the time. Like
This,
I'm,
this is this is internal pressure that you put on yourself.
yeah, it's probably the internal pressure. Yeah.
I don't know if you read an email recently, but I wrote about real estate paranoia. And
I read all the emails.
thank you. And I
They're very good.
thank you, mate. Appreciate it. And I think the real estate paranoia thing is really interesting because I find the top performers. And I mean,
You know what real estate paranoia is born by? You know what it's born by? Everyone on realestatedomain.com every morning saying, what's that agent listed? Oh, fuck, they've got another 8 listings. They're all too worried about what everyone else is fucking doing. And then that makes them paranoid. Oh, Alex has just sold another 8 houses or fucking whatever. Like so why are you worried about that? And looking that's where the paranoia comes, watching what everyone else is doing. Stay in your lane, stay focused. Like that's going to make you paranoid. I've had that happen to me when I go, oh, shit, that guy looks like he's, if you worry about that too much, you're going to get distracted. You're not going to make phone calls. You're going to feel like you're going to be a bit worthless. Like that's what I think it's born like that, because it's so easy to see what everyone's doing. They track I don't know. That's to me how the paranoid.
yeah,
I don't know. What were you about to say?
yeah. I was kind of thinking like you're so onto people because you know that it's the little things that can either win your business or lose your business. And so you're just onto things so much that because you've been on the winning end so many times and you've taken business away from me and others right at the death. So you leave no stone unturned because you know that until you have a signed agreement or a signed unconditional contract, anything can happen. True?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Anything can
100%.
happen. And if anyone's seen it all, you've seen it all. You've done it to people, and people have done it to you.
And they've done it to me. Yeah.
So as a result of all these things, you being on the winning and losing end sometimes, but mostly winning, that's just made you go, no, I need to call that guy because if I don't, someone else will. No, I need to ring him first thing in the morning because he's going to make a decision. I just saw an agent walk out of that house. Let's call them straight away. So we haven't got a signed contract yet, so anything could happen. Don't listen to the buyer until we've got a signed unconditional contract. It means nothing.
It's so true.
Yeah.
But that in itself, I don't know. That's what creates that drive to go. Because it's happened to me so many times, and I do it to people. I love doing it to people.
Yeah, you do.
Like that's the thing. I probably, like to get when you're like up. These days we don't need to do it so much, but when you're on the back foot, and you're like fucking, there's nothing better when you're fourth agent and you become first.
Yeah, and no one's done it more than you have, mate. Fucking hell. No one's done it more than you. So if you're just at a listing and you feel like you're behind, what would you do in that situation, mate?
I know, like pretty quickly that we're like, well, I walk out of listings and go, we're not getting this. Like I know you can tell.
You still followed up with the same relentless.
Oh yeah, we'll do everything possible, but we always say there's our people, then there's not our people. Like there's people who love us, there's people who love our urgency, our fucking how relentless we are, the compression selling, the selling prior. Some people go, fuck, this is all too much for us. So, but we're not like, we try and adapt and change for some people, but yes, we will still do, like Tom and I lost one yesterday in Wallara worth 4.5, and we thought we were the only agent in there, but because we didn't ask who we're competing against, but we don't really do that much. But in saying that, I said, Tom, could we have done anything better? He said, no. We did a pre-list kit, we did a proposal, we gave recommendations, we gave a top buy list. Like, even though we thought we were the only agent, we went in there like we were like one of 10. So as long as when
Why didn't you ask that? I'm curious as a coach. Why didn't
because I these days, like going back to your question you've asked, I'm more like about other agents and sort of having a go at them. I know our process is the best. I believe it's the best process. All I do is focus on our process and what we do day to day, the triggers. What no one knows what we do in the back end.
yeah.
Like what we do, this is who we're calling, this is what we've sold, this is how we're going to get more buyers to your house and what. So our whole listing presentation is not about marketing or fees or anything, it's about the whole process. So we just focus on that, and then like when you're taking them through the whole journey of what's going to happen, how we do it, and if there's one buyer, no buyers, multiple buyers, selling prior, how that looks. So we talk about how it's the nuts and bolts of how we sell, and we don't need to go into what everyone else does, because I feel like that's what draws people into us.
I'd love talking with you, mate, because you're a true master of the craft. And I could talk to you about what you do. This is probably one of we always talk real estate. We had dinner recently.
Mm.
We always talk real estate. I haven't actually had an in-depth conversation like this with you.
Mm.
I actually love it. Because,
Good
mate, I'm
mate.
so passionate about it. And I love what I do now. I absolutely love what I do. And I
Yeah.
love what you do. So we're connected that way. I know you got something on this morning. I want to ask you two questions. Goals. You used to have goals up in your shower in Paddington.
Still do.
Still do? Yeah,
Yeah.
Vaucluse, yeah.
Still do. Like last night, I emailed my team for the June goals. I emailed myself for what. So on 188 sales for the financial year, I said, guys, we've got to hit 200. We've got like 1 month. We're down to 11 now. We're going to do it. But I sent them a bonus once we hit the 200. This is what we're going to get. I'm away for half the month. We've got to hit the goals. I need 15 signed up before I go away. Like, we're fucking everything's fully. Every day is all goal
So
orientated.
you had goals 20 years ago. You have goals today. That
Yeah,
the whole
but I've changed them. I break them down into chunks, into business, personal, weekly, daily. Like that's what definitely keeps that drive.
good one. The thing that's I'm always, and you and I have emailed each other about this compression selling thing, right? You've been doing it for 12 years. No
Mm.
one does it anything like. I reckon Macca's. If like you're here, then there's daylight, then there's Macca, and then there's everybody else way down here, right? This compression, because no one sells them as quick as you. I don't get it. I still don't understand how you do it. So you're
Mm.
competing for this listing, you'll win it. It's a $5 or $6 million thing, mate. It's sold 6 days later or 12 days later. Like, just explain to me, are you setting that up at the listing?
Setting it up at the listing, we're explaining why we do it, how we do it. We're still doing 4 or 5 open houses, but it's done in 6 days. Like, we run auction, like we sold one last week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, sold Monday, but we still had 70 groups look at it.
So you're
So
setting up an auction, you're setting up a listing, and what sort of vendor management are you doing between that listing and the exchange? Is it text? Is it WhatsApp?
it's intense.
Phone calls? It's letters? What is it?
It's phone calls, letters, meetings, like literally screenshotting text. It's so high, like intensity. The vendor knows that fucking we've done everything possible, but you've got to pick your vendor to do that with too. And you
Do
can't.
you lose some vendors because they go, look, too quick, too much?
Yeah, but no, but we don't, because we know which vendor we can do it to, because we feel them out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can't, like, we've got one we just put on the market yesterday in Paddington and Hargrave Street, but at the photos, like, and this is Paddington, not our core market, we had 15 groups look at it at the photos, and only 20% of them were buyers agents. So the vendor, I said to the vendor, it was a vacant property, so why don't you come look at the photos? They've seen 15 groups, they're like, fuck, this is amazing. I said, we've actually already had a Saturday open house. We're going into a campaign this Saturday, and we just say you've already had 2 Saturdays. So they feel like you're actually been on the market for 3 weeks.
If they say, Alex, we're not in a rush and we want this certain price,
What about if we got the certain price plus an extra 100 or 2? Would you sell it now? Yes, great, bang. We know we're going to do it. You got to know that the buyers are going to be there. You're going to get the right number. You're going to get beyond what the vendor wants. It's not about crunching the vendor down. It's about you've got the vendor at a good at a realistic price, and we can get you more. This is why we recommend doing it.
You know I love you, and we're good mates.
Yeah,
Why,
man.
why does someone like you, who's worth millions, who's got so many houses, who's the clearly number one agent, why do I hear that you sometimes do stuff at 1%?
I don't.
You
I
don't do it
don't.
this year.
No. No. The lowest we've done this year is 1.25.
So you
Our
would.
average
So if it got down to a commission thing,
our average fee, and I'll send you our spreadsheet, would be sitting at about 175, 18. But half the guys that you train that we compete against are going into
they have to.
135.
Oh, mate, I tell them to.
Yeah, but but we're still beating them.
Yeah.
But that to me, like what I like to look at on it, like that's not a fair playing field either. That's like it should be on who's got the skills. That's not a skill set.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they should do it every time, but if they're coming up against you and it's a sophisticated client who's leaning towards you, they can only pull a few levers, which is give us a short time to get some buyers through. We'll offer you this much, or we've got more attention that we can give it because Alex has got 25 listings, which people have been saying that for.
No, fucking
I
20
was saying
years.
that. I was saying that.
Never get Alex. He's too busy.
He's too busy. He won't turn up to the opens, all that shit.
Yeah.
So they can only pull a few levers, and sometimes in the right spot. If it's a good house in a core market of yours, mate, that's the spot they have to do. I would do it. Like if I was competing against you, I would have to do that, and I'm probably still not going to get it. But at least I'd walk away going, I knew I probably wasn't going to get it, but I gave them a low fee just to see if I could, bring them this way. But you're saying that you won't do low fees.
No.
What
Very,
what
very
if you
rare.
were second and they said, Alex, we like you?
Very rare will do like the lowest we've done this year is 125.
So there is a point, even if it's a $6 million house, and they said, we'll give it to you, but it's got to be 1.1%.
If it was, but we'd put a kicker in there. We'd go, let's do it at 1.25. They'll do it. We will still negotiate the fee on it.
Interesting. Well, one last question. And thanks for
but the one thing is where the differential is I'm very lucky that my database is so good. I've got a great following that those ones I'm going to lose is probably because they're not really fucking part of my sphere of people.
Yeah.
But like it's, yeah, so it does happen, but it's, yeah.
Yeah, so you've got really loyal clients who the commission's not an issue. Then you've got the middle, which they'll probably lean towards you anyway. And then you've got the next tier, which it may come down to commission thing. You're like, look, I don't really need that. So I can say no to that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome, mate.
You had one more question, I think.
I did, but I can't think of it now, mate. Yeah, so if you lose listings, you're okay. You'll like if you lose. I was always surprised about how many listings you lost. I mean, you must be going for so many.
We like fuck. I reckon I'm still on about 60% conversion, still low, but that's also we're in.
So you're doing.
We do 70.
I remember 5-10 years ago, you were saying to me that you lose a lot of listings. I'm like, how? If you got 20 online, like that's.
But we do 650 to 700 appraisals a year, every year. It's a lot. Like today, I've got 4. Yes, on Tuesday I had 8 appraisals. But you got to remember though, like they're fucking in 8 different suburbs, and they're like they're stuff at $1 million, they're stuff at 10. Like we're so like almost
spread so wide. How many sellers on your pipeline seller list?
Do you mean like hit list for the next 30 days? Yeah. 20. Oh no, actually I've got about 30. Yeah. Like I just had a look at it. Yeah. I've got a hit list for targeting, like all the, but what I did yesterday, I went through all of my appraisals this year and I found 2 listings out of it. People I've forgotten about.
You're doing 600 to 700 appraisals a year. That's
just prospecting.
How many owners would you have on your owner database?
About 3,000, 2.5, 3, not many.
See? And for everyone listening, here's a guy who's been doing this at the top level for 25 years. 2,500, 3,000 owners. Like, so this stuff that people got 5,000 and 10,000, it's ridiculous. Mate, that's awesome. Oh, mate, I had a good question for it. I can't think of it now.
All right.
But that's really good, mate. Mate, you're a legend. Mate, keep up the great work. I think it's, mate, I mean, no, there's no words that needed to say what you're doing. Like we all look at you, we're all wondering how you do it. We're all wondering when he's going to stop. Like how much is enough? But like I
Hey,
just love it. I love
tell
your
all you.
relentlessness. I love your passion, mate. You've set the bar so freaking. Oh, that's my question. If we could, you see a lot of young agents, right? What is the mistake that a lot of them are making? Like, is it just they need to be more
Playing the
patient?
short game.
Yeah.
The short game.
So you're saying if you had a son who was 20 years old and he goes follows your footsteps into the game like you and I, you're
You won't
saying
make money for 5 years. Just all you're thinking about is building a following and a database. It'll come.
gold, everyone. The biggest mistake Alex says that everyone's making, just to repeat it, is he's saying that everyone's playing a short game. It's 5 years of hustle, apprenticeship, not low comms, but that's the perfect time to grind your teeth, build your database, get good at what you're doing, watch the agents that are your hero agents, take a bit from them, and then over time you'll start making that money. Yeah,
Yep.
mate,
I've got to
you
run.
have a great day, mate. Appreciate
You
you
too.
stopping. I'll see you
See
in
you
three
later.
months' time.
Yeah. Bye, mate.
See you, legend. Bye bye.
Bye.